So Jesus decides to go out fishing after doing some preaching. He gets into the boat in the first place, and it might seem strange to us. But he's talking to a big crowd, and maybe some of us have had this experience that when you're out on water, when you're out on the lake, and maybe things are kind of quiet and there's not a lot of wind, voices tend to carry a lot more, that the lake ends up being something that amplifies the voice. So sometimes if you've maybe been to the shore or a lake and somebody's out on the water and they fall down and scream about it and maybe say something they shouldn't have even, their mom might hear it on the shoreline and say, hey, don't be doing that kind of stuff. That is, water can amplify our voices. So Jesus sets out because he wants to be able to talk. These people want to hear him. He uses Simon Peter's boat. This isn't the first time that Simon has met Jesus. What we heard in yesterday's reading from Mass was that Jesus was at the house of Simon Peter's mother-in-law, and she was sick, and he prayed over her, and she got better. So there's something about Peter's encounter with Jesus that changes his heart. That he hears him preaching, he hears the word that says something to him that moves his heart, he sees what Jesus does, and then there's this scene that we hear today that's really, it's about abundance. It's about being overwhelmed by what Jesus can do. You know, Peter and Andrew and their partners, James and John and their father Zebedee, they're professionals. They know their craft. They fish all the time. That's not what Jesus did. They know him to be a carpenter, a builder, you know. So they know what their own profession is, and they've been fishing all night because that's when you usually fish. And now this guy is saying, why don't you go fishing now, which is the wrong time of day to fish. I think you probably would, if you put yourself in Peter's shoes, might think, who is this guy? He doesn't know anything about fishing. I know fishing, and this isn't going to work. Something in that encounter between what Jesus says and what Jesus does and this abundance of a catch changes Peter's heart, changes Andrew's heart, changes James and John as well. It's the first call, or the call of the first disciples. And Peter's response is a response that sometimes we have. When you see something that is really beautiful, you think, wow. Or when you see something really big, you have a sense of your own smallness. A long, long time ago, I had the opportunity to stand next to a camel. Camels are really big. They're a lot bigger than the little sugar cookies we ate at Christmas time that were in the shape of a camel. They're huge. And you look up and you think, wow, I'm not very big compared to this. I think something like that is going on with Peter. So that he comes to Jesus and he becomes aware of the ways that his own heart is kind of small. I think what this passage is telling us is that we have these encounters with the Lord in our lives, and it's good because it calls us to something more than we think we can be. It calls us to be generous and loving in ways that maybe we don't even imagine we can be. And that part of that call is for us to see the difference in where we are and where we could be. Your teachers know this. As a teacher, I must admit, it's what we try to do when we're teaching a particular subject. See that gap and maybe shrink that gap a little bit. where we are and where we can be.